Are you frazzled, tired, and stressed beyond belief? Go to eastwesthealing.com/stress reduction manifesto to download your free 14-page guide to help you define exactly what you need to support yourself nutritionally, increase energy, and live the life that you deserve.
Hey everybody, it's Josh and Jeannie at East West Healing and Performance, and we are here to speak with you about something that is super important and to actually help you gain some clarity possibly around some of this confusion and why some of the things that you might be trying nutritionally aren't working for you. Stress.
And confusion.
Oh, you get the two together and it's freaking chaos. But stress itself, what we don't understand is, number one, it's going to affect everybody. His stress is very different than my stress and vice versa. How our bodies respond to that stress is completely and totally different.
And remember, as Ray Pete says, stress usually makes us more susceptible to stress.
Imagine that. It's a vicious freaking cycle. Go ahead.
And the thing is, we talk to so many people every day from all over the world, whether they're a client, or whether they're a potential client, or whether they're just calling us to tell us their story and open up and get vulnerable. And, we could break it down and say it's food, it's this and this. People are just chronically stressed. And the problem is they're more confused than ever, which actually adds to the stress. And the problem is most people over time, consciously or maybe subconsciously, actually become addicted to their stress, addicted to the drama, addicted to the feeling of being stressed. And there's an interesting little thing we have here from Hanselia that I wanted to bring up, and then Jeannie can bring up some other great stuff. And he was talking about, and I'm going to read kind of from something on the screen here, the experience of stress is unique to each and every person. What defines our resiliency to stress is a matter of personal disposition and personal history experiences, like Jeannie just said. And this is why we always say, and everyone throws daggers at us because we say this, it doesn't really bother us, but everything you do, whatever piece of the puzzle you're working on, nutrition, emotional, it has to be individualized. So when you ask a question about a food, about Epsom salt baths, about whatever, it's hard to answer it because everything has to be individualized to the person based on their resiliency and based on their history.
And this is where the confusion lies, is because we're looking at things in a very this for that way, and
right.
we cannot do that, and it's becoming more and more apparent that we cannot do that. Diets don't work. Using this approach or that approach doesn't work. It's very, very specific to the person. Stress affects every single tissue in the system. And we have a society that's trying to heal their gut in every way, shape, and form, when what we don't realize is that if we're not working with the stresses and identifying them in the system, you can try every approach to healing your gut. It's not going to work. You have to begin to reduce the load and restore the system with the proper nutrients that your body doesn't react to, so that you can begin to redevelop that foundation of what your foods were meant to be used for, and that is for the function of every system in your body.
So let me continue with this, and we'll get back to the gut. For those exposed to high levels of environmental stressors like physical, nutritional, developmental, emotional, etc., since early childhood, it is the absence of a stress that creates unease. Hanselia observed, to such persons, stress feels like a desirable, while the absence of it feels like something to be avoided. And it's interesting because when we work with people, we talk to people that are going through the healing process, they find fault in the person they're working with. They find fault in the system that they're working with, or sometimes fault in other systems. I mean, unfortunately, Facebook is great, and it's great to share ideas, but it's turned into bashing this person and bashing that person. And the funny thing is, when you start healing, and maybe when you enter the correct path that you need to be on, when you start shedding those layers and start creating some balance and organization and start creating some space for healing, you don't really know what it feels like. So to you, that you feel like the walls are closing in on you, but you have to sit with that feeling, because that feeling is telling you something that possibly you're actually addicted to your stress, and you're actually starting to de-stress yourself. You're not just used to how it feels anymore. And you have to kind of give yourself space to sit down and stew on that and get a feeling for what it feels like to shed those layers of stress. And I just find that interesting because a lot of people, when they start going through the healing cycle, they think it's all roses, and they don't realize that when you heal, and we talk about this in our Fight Fatigue with Prue program, a Metabolic Blueprint program, when we work with people, when you use a philosophy that we've created based on many people's work, it's basic, and other people are doing it, but you're using food to manipulate cellular physiology, you're manipulating everything at the cell level. And there's a lot of people that believe your personality, your DNA, everything is actually stored in there from the time of conception or even before till you're, 20, 30, 40 years old. So you're actually starting to stir the pot on so many levels, and you have to realize that when you're doing this nutrition thing, you can't just zoom in on nutrition. You have to zoom out and experience and feel what else is going on in your life, mentally, emotionally, physically, and focus on those pieces when they should be focused on, and maybe jot some notes down about how you're feeling, because what you're feeling is actually part of the healing process. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree, and I've said this a million times, that the more as we begin to use food and we use it in the right way for our body, as Josh says, a lot of these things come up for us because we are many, many parts and pieces. We're not just food. But what I love so much about it is that it allows you to be able to begin to process this information, because now you, like I just said, you're restoring those resources of vitamins and minerals and nourishment to the system. So now when the body has things coming in and environment is coming in, how you're able to process it emotionally, physically, and spiritually is completely and totally different. And I've always said that from the get-go is, how you take care of yourself is direct, or how you respond to life is a reflection of how well you're taking care of yourself. You know, so it's huge.
And to quote Heinz Sely again, that kind of goes with this, which I find is fabulous. Excessive stress occurs when the demands made on an organism, meaning a human we could say, exceed the organism's reasonable capacity to fulfill them.
Period.
And we could talk about nutrition. We could say it's mental, emotional. We could say it's physical. We could say it's financial. I mean, look at our society. Everyone lives beyond their means. Of course it's going to be a stress.
But the most important thing is beginning to identify it for yourself.
Right.
And that's, again, where you're going to begin to eliminate so much of the confusion that is out there, because there is a ton of information.
I think a lot of people think the confusion, which I somewhat agree with, is because there's so much out there. Right. One says up, the other says down. One says eat this fat, the other says that fat. Everything is being everyone's contradicting one another. But that does create confusion. For us, if you really just look at human physiology and what the body can actually break down, what the body uses, there really shouldn't be any confusion. But we think the real confusion actually lies within the person, because they're not aware of what maybe they're getting into, and they're not aware of what's going on in their life and what stresses are actually causing what they're feeling. That's where a lot of the confusion is actually coming from, I think, with people, because they're not tuning in to where they're at. They don't realize that you're exactly where you're at because of what you're doing in your life. You're writing a book every day, and what type of book are you writing?
But there's also a lot of parts and pieces that you're really unclear about in regards to how your nervous system responds to things around you. And you're not in relationship with that because that may have been your norm for a very, very long time.
Right.
Maybe since you exited the womb or even before. So, there's people who have struggled from the get-go and have never really understood that. And it's really important to understand those parts and pieces and begin to explain that and put it into some kind of, or build some clarity around that, what that means to that individual.
Now, going back to the gut, just to use this as one of a million examples. I mean, there's so many examples we could use. And I've talked about this probably a million times in many of my YouTubes. But, there's a lot of people out there. I'd say the most common symptom beside fatigue is gut issues. Take this, do this diet for your gut problem. Do the fungal diet for your gut problem.
Yes.
Do the GAPS diet for your gut problem. The issue is the body's a system of systems. And you can't, everything you do to your body, you put in your body, or put in your skin, has a consequence, whether positive or negative. So you can't just think you're going to eat something and you're going to heal the gut. You have to look at it the same way, kind of, the other way, and think about, what actually affects the gut. What actually controls the gut, which goes back to cellular physiology. They're the conductors of what is actually going on in the gut. It actually controls the gut and other systems, because your cells are in every tissue and they're actually regulated by thyroid hormone. So people with gut issues, now we're simplifying it. Of course, you have all these different names, right? But when it comes down to it, you just have a problem with a different part of the gut. We rewind it in its cellular physiology, in its blood sugar dysregulation, it's not producing energy, etc. But you have all these people with gut problems, they think, because we're talking about food and we want to get people back to eating food and the fun around food and using food as your supplement because you can, because we do it with people all over the world every day with diseases and dysfunctions. But you don't need to take all these supplements, because if you notice, most people are taking tons of supplements when they have gut problems and they eat less food. How can you break down supplements if you're having trouble breaking down food?
But the bigger piece is if you don't reduce the stress, you're never going to heal the gut.
So you're using this for that approach.
Yeah, and putting a heavier load on the system.
And you're overburdening the liver. And the problem is, if you notice, when you stop the supplements, the problem is still there. So kind of going what Jeannie said is one of our philosophies is, why take something to reduce inflammation? And when I say inflammation, you could correlate that with a probiotic or whatever. Why take something to reduce something? Why not eliminate the things that are actually causing the stress in your body, causing the GI problems,
and that doesn't mean eliminating a bunch of different foods. It just means coming more into relationship with that and then defining what is going to be the best approach. Because in that circumstance, how you're digesting and metabolizing food has become very compromised. So there's so many parts and pieces, and that's, again, part of the underlying confusion is that we're working with one system and not recognizing that system is in relationship with the whole. So it doesn't work. And it might, like Josh said, for a short period of time, but
instead of eliminating things that are causing inflammation, I'm not even talking about food. Instead of taking things that are causing inflammation, to reduce inflammation, I'm not even talking about, supplements. It's everything. Everyone thinks they're just going to meditate under a tree and they're going to be a bliss bunny, and that's going to help them because Deepak Chopra says meditation is great. You could correlate that with a probiotic. Why not take those things away in your life? The foods, the emotional stress, work on the financial stress, set up a plan, the physical stress, look at the workouts you do and the volume, the intensity, the frequency. Why not work on the stressors in your life that are causing the stress instead of taking things or doing things and just doing them thinking they're actually going to work? You can't continually do the same thing and expect different results. And this is what we see with people. They say, well, I eliminated all these foods and I'm drinking bone broth and I don't take supplements, but I'm not better. Well, the damage was done. A, there's a lot of things to look at and it takes time. But B, maybe individualizing your approach and looking at you and saying, I have a GI problem. Maybe my GI problem is not because of the food that I'm eating, because I'm eating healthy food, I eat organic. Maybe it's coming from somewhere else. Maybe it's a structural issue leading to a GI problem. Maybe it's an emotional problem, which we've had with people leading to GI problem. Maybe it's a physical problem. Maybe it's you always have to individualize it and realize there's many pieces to the healing puzzle. You have to focus on them to peel away the layers so you don't have to take all the supplements and use all these tons of modalities which overwhelm and overburden the body, because from my standpoint, the more you have to use those, the lazier you're actually being in your life, and the more you're ignoring the other parts of the healing puzzle. So I think we really have said enough for today. Where are we getting all this information? Well, if you want to go to the link, it's down in the description below. It's at the beginning of the YouTube. It's our 14-page Stress Reduction Manifesto document that's free that you can download on our website by going to the link at the beginning of the YouTube or in the description page below.
And we're really hoping that it begins to help you find a different path or the right path.
Yeah, it's a jump start.
Whatever it's going to do for you. Yeah. It's great information, and we are really happy to be sharing it with you.
We'll see you guys later.